Hey, and welcome to Unlearning Stress, the podcast where we break the rules and cycles that keep you overcommitted, overstretched, and just plain exhausted, and replace them with something better. No fluff, no guilt, just real talk, real solutions, and expert insights to help you shift the way you live. Whether you're here for the first time or you've been with me for a while, you're in the right place. I'm Mischelle O'Neill, your resident emotional wellness coach, and I'm here to help you unlearn the patterns that are wearing you down so you can live with more ease, clarity, and control. Let's get to it. My question is, what do you do actually when you outgrow a life that, well, technically it still works, right? But it doesn't work for you anymore, right? It's not where you want to be. It's not who you want to be. You don't just wake up all of a sudden and think, oh, I've been allowing this. No, it doesn't happen like that. If someone ever hints at it, your first reaction is, no, that's not what's happening. That's not it. That's not how I'm showing up. And so what happens is we immediately start explaining, right? It's the job. Is I'm just not in the right headspace, or they're not treating me right there, or maybe it's the culture. It's just how I was brought up. It's the way we deal with things, or it's just the way people are, and I just got to get used to it, or I've got to decide this isn't where I want to be, or I'm here because of the economy. I need this job. I need to be here. And I'm really feeling this change. Or maybe it's you say it's how my spouse is wired. It's just who they are. Or it's how leadership works. See all those excuses? Those are excuses that we use when what we do, or when we feel that we've outgrown the life that technically still works for us. We stay in that space, right? And so we look for those external explanations first. We try to put it on something else or what we're dealing with. And that's human. That's who we are. Who wants to blame themselves, or who wants to say that they may be going to be the cause of something? And so that pattern that we're doing, that looking for other people or other things to fall back into, you know, that's the easiest way, and that's the easiest course to deal with things. But we start noticing that, here's the thing, that same friction that we're dealing with, that same frustration that we're dealing with, is probably not just showing up at work. Actually, we probably see that same friction in other areas of our life. That same tension probably is showing up in our relationships. It shows up at home. It shows up maybe in how we communicate with our friends and stuff. And so that same misunderstanding that brought us to this point of frustration keeps happening. And I always ask my clients, I always ask when they start complaining about things and that same thing keeps showing up over and over again, I ask, so what's the common denominator? And at some point, that's what we quietly sometimes need to ask ourselves. What's the common denominator? And that's the crack. That's when we start looking at things differently. And it's not for shame. We're not looking to shame ourselves or think, I'm a bad person, or I just can't get it right, whatever it is. And we're not attacking ourselves. We're not talking about this as a self, attack. It's just to bring clarity, to start looking at the beginning of understanding where this problem may be originating from, or where this frustration that we're dealing with may be originating from. And when we start looking at it that way, we start having this internal defense. And it may not be something that we talk about out loud or say to others, but we have this internal conversation about, well, I'm just trying to get my point across. I'm just trying to talk to people, or I'm just trying to be clear and make sure that they understand, or I'm just trying to handle it, and these are the things that I need to do to handle it. And that denial, over time, it starts softening into awareness. Maybe I could handle this a little different, or maybe this is happening because I allowed it. And that is where this live begins. And I'm Michelle O'Neill, and you're on Break Time Live. So I want to thank you for being here with me this time of day, or if you're catching the replay, I want to thank you for being here. And I know how precious your time is. So thank you for being here. And so what I want to say is, you're not just tolerating a job at this point of your life if this technically does not work for you anymore. What you're tolerating is the tone that people use with you. What you're tolerating is the way that you're being dismissed. What you're tolerating is the way that you are being interrupted, or just brushed off. And that is a pet peeve of mine, being interrupted. And I do it myself to others, right? And what you're tolerating is the way that people assume that she'll handle it, the way that they rely on you without acknowledging you and what you do. And the hard part of all of this is, you should have nipped some of that right in the bud. You saw it, but you brushed it off. You said it's not worth dealing with, or it's not worth the hassle or the frustration or their change. How often do we think other people will change, right? So you had the language to nip it at the bud, and you had that awareness. You saw it happening, right? And you could have stopped it right there. Mm-mm, mm-mm. No, that's your responsibility, right? And you had the authority. One of my favorite sayings is, start as you mean to go on. Because when we let things go over time, it is so hard to reteach how you want things to be treated, or how you want to be treated. And so instead of nipping those things in the bud, you don't. So why? Because somewhere along the way, you learn that this was an acceptable pattern, that what you're letting go is okay. And maybe it was that's just how women survive in this male dominated space. This is how we just do. We don't create waves. We don't bring extra attention to ourselves. We don't want to be seen as, for me, the angry Black woman, or, woman. And that's how we keep the peace. So we stifle ourselves. We don't say anything. We let it go. And that's how strong, or we say that's how strong women handle things. They can handle it. They don't need to lean on anyone else. They don't need to complain. So we don't. We don't take it up the channels that it needs to be taken to addressed right there in the time. That's how my mom did it. She got through. She was strong. I admired her and how she handled things. And that's how I learned how to handle things. And that's how we were taught to be agreeable, right? That's how you were taught to stay safe. So we adopted that strategy. We saw how it worked for other people. We saw how they didn't have to deal with things. They weren't in the position that we're in to always have pushback. And it worked. And that's important. It worked. It worked for them. So if it worked for them, and I'm doing it, and it's quasi working, it works for us. We advanced, right? We survived. We maintained relationships. They worked. And most importantly, we kept stability. We're safe. We have our job. We have our marriage. We have our friends. But now you're starting to see the cost. And the deeper revelation is this: I'm not even sure, after putting up with this for so long, that this is who I am anymore. No one walks around saying, I manipulated, right? But sometimes we learn subtle ways of managing outcome, of how to get what we want. Whether we're managing our tone, whether we're managing our perception or managing our reactions, we're using those vices, practices, whatever you want to call them. We're using those because they work until they didn't. And so now the real shift isn't, oh, I hate them. I hate that about myself. I hate that I do this. That's not the real shift. The real shift is, I don't want to show up this way anymore. You're starting to understand who you are and how you want to show up in your life and what you're willing to tolerate in your life. And that's the pivot. That's the growth. At one point, this way of showing up that we just talked about, it made sense, right? It got us where we are. It got us what we wanted. And it worked. It helped you advance. It helped you stay safe. It helped you keep the peace or maintain stability. And it helped you avoid unnecessary conflict. It worked. That's why we keep doing it. It worked. You ever hear that saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? No. Because somewhere down the line, something's going to shift. Not overnight, not dramatically, big horns blowing, doo, doo, doo. Nope. You just start asking yourself harder questions. Who do I want to be now? How do I want to show up? What kind of rooms do I really want to be in? What do I want around me? Who do I want around me? What do I want my life to reflect? And then there are even deeper questions. Do I even like who I'm becoming? And you know what? That's the question that changes everything. Everything. Because once you start evaluating yourself, not just your environment, not just those things outside of you, the old strategies that we're talking about, they start to feel misaligned. Your integrity has changed. Some of your values have changed. And some of your beliefs have changed. Not wrong, that misalignment. It isn't wrong, and it's not evil. You know what? It's just outdated. It got you here. Absolutely. But it may not get you where you're going. And then comes that quiet, but real, serious realization. And that's like, I don't want to show up like this anymore. This is not who I am or who I am becoming. That, my friend, is growth. It's not rebellion and it's not drama. It's growth. So why now? It's not that you didn't see pieces of this before. You probably did, right? 5 years ago, you probably saw it. 10 years ago, maybe even last year, but you saw it. But the thing is, growth takes time. And you can know something intellectually and still not be ready to act on it. How many times in if you have a business and growing your business, how many times in in even in your relationships and the growth of your relationships, how many times do you know something, but you're not ready to deal with it yet? And you're not ready to act on it yet. And if you're not in that headspace, if you're not in that season, if you're not strong enough yet, it doesn't work. That truth doesn't hit. It just sits there with no foundation. But life keeps shaping you. You go through things, right? You learn new things. You survive old things and you refine. You get better. Think about wine. When they say wine or even liquors, the aging process is what makes it better. That new wine and that old wine are like night and day. And if I hadn't walked through what I walked through then, I wouldn't be ready to see this clearly now. It's a process. It's not failure. It's not delay. It's a process. Perfect example. How long have I had my business? Since 2014. And I actually started out as an image consultant because I saw how what we felt we looked like or what we felt we were portraying is how we attached value and love to ourselves. And so I wanted to help women see themselves in a different light, in a better light, as they truly were from the outside. But I found out as I worked with my clients and they came back to me and told me about the changes in their lives and how things affected their lives and them and how they felt about themselves, that it wasn't about what they looked like, but how they saw themselves. Humble beginnings. I thought the issue was closed, but it wasn't. It was the identity, the self-perception, and it was the internal narrative, the conversation. But you have to go through the surface layer first to understand the deeper layer. Same thing here. That's what we're talking about. The tolerance that you went through, it worked for a season, for a time. It protected you in that season. It was what you needed for that season. And it advanced you in that season. But you're not in that season anymore. And now you're strong enough, clear enough, and grounded enough to say, I don't want to show up this way in my next season. That's what makes now different. So different. So back to the original question. What do you do when you outgrow a life that technically it still works, right? You can still get by. You may even be able to advance. It works. But it's not who you are. You don't burn it down overnight. Okay, that would be great, right? And you don't make impulsive moves. You don't just quit your job and say, I'm going to start new. You don't make those impulsive moves. You don't blame everyone around you. If it wasn't for them, if I wasn't trying to take care of them, if I wasn't trying to think of other people, you pause. My favorite word. You acknowledge it. I see it. I see where I played a role in this. I see where I myself kind of held myself back because it was comfortable. It was easy. I see it. And I see that I've grown past it. That's the important thing. You're allowed to outgrow what once worked. That's okay. And you're allowed to stop tolerating what you've matured beyond. That's what I want to leave you with today. Again, I'm Mischelle O'Neill, and you're on Break Time Live. I'm so glad you took the time out of your day to sit with me. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye. If this episode hits home, don't just push it aside. Lean into it. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And connect with me on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Substack, where we go even deeper. Links will be in the comments. And if you're ready to start unlearning the patterns that keep you stuck, keep listening, because real change happens one choice at a time. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.